These two things are key. This time is only going to come around once, so savor it. Starting a new job as a software engineer, or even just moving teams internally within the company, can sometimes be really overwhelming. There's so much to learn. There's new code bases, maybe new languages, new frameworks, maybe new ways of working, new team members, maybe a new company, and there's so much information to take in. And I've just started a new role at a new company, and while I love the challenge of learning new things and pushing myself in different ways, I do understand that sometimes it can be a little intimidating. So I just want to take you on a day in my life working as a software engineer in my new job, and I just want to give you some tips along the way on how I'm kind of making this transition smoother for myself, how I'm making things easier, and hopefully give you some tips on how you can kind of navigate this change, whether you're also starting a new job, whether you're about to start a new job, whether you're planning to move into software engineering or anything similar. Hopefully this video can help you. So I need to start today by starting my stand-up. So I'm just going to join my stand-up and then we'll get into the tips. Stand-ups are actually a great way to get a feel for what everyone's been working on lately. It gives you a bit of an overview of the projects, priorities, and who's doing what. Even if you don't fully understand everything yet, it's a good idea just to listen in and understand a bit more about the team and kind of ease you into it. Okay, so I've just finished my stand-up. Now, before getting on with the rest of my day, I just want to first make the point that I think whenever you're starting a new tech role or any job in general, I think you need to allow yourself to go into that role without any pressure, to ease yourself into it and kind of not go in with really high expectations of yourself, not go in expecting yourself to be perfect at everything already or expecting yourself to be performing at your best. You are new to the role, new to the company, there's a lot of new changes and no one is expecting everything from you straight away. So really take advantage of that. Really go in and just kind of get to grips with everything at the start. Ease yourself in, and I mean, companies, most people, most managers will be really flexible at the start. They'll allow you to have time to read up on things, to get your bearings, to introduce yourself to people, and yeah, really take advantage of this time because this time is only going to come around once, so savor it. Don't put any self-pressure on yourself because there's probably already little bits of stress in there. You don't need to add to it. So your manager should be able to give you any kind of onboarding documents or anything that you need to read into. So make sure you have access to those first of all. And if they haven't mentioned anything yet, make sure to ask. Come across as proactive from day one. So use that documentation, use anything to kind of get your bearings. So aside from the typical kind of laptop setup, kind of any access requests, any kind of development setup that you might need for your role, any local setup, there are also other things that you need to think about in terms of kind of general getting used to your role. So make sure you know who your manager is. Make sure you introduce yourself to your team members, to anyone that you kind of think has kind of some relevance or some importance, maybe people with certain influence. Maybe you want to schedule one-to-ones. And yeah, read up on what your team does, what you will be doing. Make sure you know the role. I'm sure you kind of do before you start, but make sure you really understand what is required of you. Make sure you kind of get to grips with your team's code base, the different apps your team owns, the different teams that your team interacts with, all of those kind of initial introductory getting your bearings stuff. And I think it's a good idea to kind of understand who does what, who you can go to for certain things. So obviously your manager, but then also the people team, maybe the IT team, maybe certain back-end developers, maybe the senior ones that you can ask questions for if you're a mid-level, or a mid-level if you're a junior, and maybe the front-end people that you can ask help from, and the DevOps people, different people in different teams, just so you can kind of, understand the business, how everything fits together, and the structure. And I mean, even in kind of companies where they say they have a flat structure, there are still people with more influence or more decision-making power, and you kind of want to get to know those people. You want to build relationships with those people from the start. So first few days is all about sorting that stuff out. So when it comes to the technical side of things, the best place to start, in my opinion, is always by reading the README of your different apps, your different services, different code bases, and reading documentation. These two things are key. They will help you kind of just get a broader context, kind of get an understanding of what's going on, and help you get set up locally. You don't need to understand everything in depth at this stage, but just kind of having that rough context really helps. And then from then, my first kind of aim is just to get things running locally. So setting up the apps that you know you'll need. You can speak to your team and your manager about this, and they can probably help get you set up if needed. But just getting your environment set up locally so that you're ready to code when you actually start coding. And then after having a look at documentation, and when you want to start understanding how the code actually kind of works, I think it's really good to kind of look at how the code flows and understanding it at just a high level to start with. So maybe you're working with different HTTP endpoints, different REST APIs. I think it's really useful to start with kind of looking at the different entry points to the code, different endpoints, and understanding what the code does from that external viewpoint first, and then looking down deeper into it, so the different layers and how it flows through, and then kind of understanding maybe just what the code is connected to. So whether it's reaching towards a database, whether there are external APIs, just that high level overview to start with. And then maybe if you work with different microservices, it can be really useful to understand just kind of how those services fit together. Again, even just from a high level overview. And for me personally, I find it really useful to draw diagrams just to kind of get my head around it. Maybe your team has diagrams in its documentation already, but for me, I quite like to just sketch it out myself, and just that really helps me understand it better. And now reading all of this information by yourself and working through it, understanding at your own pace is great, but I think one of the most important things that you can leverage is your team. Your team knows so much about the code already. They've been there a lot longer than you, and they are the best people to ask. Use your team to help you understand it better. Ask them to give you a code walkthrough. Ask them to kind of explain things that you might have missed. Ask them to point out anything that you don't know. And build that relationship with them from early on. So build that relationship with your manager. Reach out for a one-to-one. Build that relationship with the different people across your team. Understand their strengths and the main things that they do already, so that you know who to go to when you actually start your development work. They can point you in the right direction, even if they don't know the answers themselves, they will know who has the answers. So make this a priority. Make reaching out to your team and building that relationship a priority from day one. And most engineers are really happy to help you. So I don't want you to feel afraid of asking questions or think that you have silly questions, because I can guarantee that someone else will have a similar question or will have had a similar question when they started. So don't be afraid of asking those questions. Now is your time to ask. It's much better to ask all of those stupid questions now, get them out of the way, rather than 6 months down the line where you're expected to know everything already. So really take advantage of your first few weeks for asking as many questions as possible. And if anything, asking questions probably helps you out and it helps them out. So it helps you out by showing that you're curious and setting a good first impression already, because it shows people that you want to get involved and that you are interested in the work. And it also probably helps them out, because people love to feel like they're helping people. People love to feel like they're being asked for help and they have more knowledge. So you're only going to make them feel good about themselves by you asking them questions and you wanting their help. So I wouldn't stress about asking questions. And one more point about your understanding of the code and just getting to grips with everything is looking at tests. So I really think that looking at tests in the code base, so the tests that already exist, really kind of help you get that high level overview of the code, again, helping you understand what the code does. Hopefully, if your team has good tests, they will be named in the correct way and they'll be laid out in a format that helps you understand what the code does, if they followed correct coding principles. If they haven't, then this is a good opportunity for you to spot what needs to be refactored in the future, which again sets a good impression, a good first impression. But yeah, having a look at all of the different tests, unit tests, integration tests, and maybe understanding how they do end-to-end testing, or there are different names for this, whatever they call it, what different testing frameworks and what types of testing they do. So unit tests, they give you an insight into individual components or methods, and you can see what inputs are expected, what outputs should be returned, and how the logic is handled. And then understanding the integration tests, they're great for kind of understanding how different parts of the system interact. And they kind of help paint a broader picture of how the application works as a whole. So yeah, I could not recommend looking at tests enough. Now moving on to some tips around the actual development work. So when you move past just the onboarding stage and move past just the documentation stage, you'll still have to do elements of that, but when you actually want to start coding, it can sometimes feel like you're maybe out of your depth, or maybe there's still so much that you don't know. And that's probably true. There probably is a lot that you don't know. And that will be true continually. That will be true even when you've been at the job for 6 months, even when you've been at the job for a year, because there's always more to learn as a software engineer. So this is completely normal and completely natural. So don't let that put you off. I think it helps to just focus on what's relevant to your current piece of work, what's relevant to your current ticket, or anything that you're currently working on that day or that week. And to not overwhelm yourself by trying to understand absolutely everything, because that's not possible. Don't try and learn everything immediately. Focus on one thing at a time and focus on just learning what you need to learn when it comes up. There's no point rushing ahead and trying to learn a million things at once. Each task will kind of guide you to a new piece of work, a new piece of code, and you can pick it up then. And now another thing around feeling that overwhelm, something that I think can be really helpful is pairing with other people in your team. So maybe your team has company policies around this, maybe it's a natural thing they do, or maybe it's not, but it's fine for you to suggest it. Just to kind of pair on maybe your initial few tickets, if that's something you feel like you need, or just adding in an extra call here and there, or any discussion, and I'm sure people will be willing to help you out if you do feel a little out of your depth. And now some final little tips that I think will help you settle in faster and make a big difference. So one thing that I really like to do is write down what I've learned each day. So I just keep these notes on my laptop where I literally just write down any little things that I come across that I have learned that might be helpful for the next day, maybe any processes that I need to follow, maybe any key flows, or maybe any setup guides. Anything that you kind of might need to refer back to that you can easily forget, because there's a lot of information to take in your first kind of month. I just write it down, and it really helps me to just kind of have this log of information. Something else I like to write down is just a list of to-dos, anything that I know needs to get done. Any questions as well, I think that's really useful to kind of compile a list of questions so that you're not kind of constantly bombarding your teammates or other people. I think it can be really beneficial to compile a list, and then next time you have a chat, an actual meeting, bring up that list of questions. If you find that an easier way to do it, sometimes it's easier to kind of get those questions all answered in one go, and it's kind of not dragged out. And I think from those questions, you can also use that to understand what is missing in documentation. So if you have these questions, it's probably because they're not answered anywhere. And I think this is a really good point where you can show your impact from day one, a really good way to show your impact from day one. You are then able to document your whole setup process and your whole onboarding process, and you are able to provide a better onboarding process for the next person that joins the company if you provide that documentation somewhere that is accessible to those people. And I think this is great for you, for them, and just the whole company in general. And yeah, I think that's something that is really beneficial. So I would definitely recommend keeping that record somewhere and then potentially turning it into extra documentation for other people. Thank you for watching. I hope these tips have helped you if you've either joined a new company, or you're about to join a new company, or join a new tech role, new software engineering role. I hope they've been useful for you. If they have, please let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see any future videos like days in my life, career tips, different insights, don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully see you next time.